Hello everyone and welcome to a new episode of the Path to DevOps series. I'm Shiki and today we will continue this journey by moving our source code into Azure DevOps, and basically we're going to put the foundation of starting to work in Azure DevOps. And we're doing this because of a number of reasons which I'm going to discuss in depth at the end of the video, but basically it's going to be our to-go platform for DevOps processes. If this sounds fun, let's jump right into it. We require two things in order to move to Azure DevOps. The first one is the Git repository, which I'm sharing right now and which will be linked in the description down below. And the second one is obviously an Azure DevOps organization, and this link I will also link down below in the description. For you guys, you can just start free and create your own Azure DevOps organization. I already have one, so I'm just going to sign in. And here we have it. These on the left are organizations. I have multiple, but you only need one. And inside of an organization, you're going to have one or more projects. And in this case, I'm going to create a new project and walk with you step by step through the process. Now that I moved the camera out of the way, you should be able to see the new project button, which I'm going to click right now. And I'm going to create a path to DevOps project. Seems fitting in terms of name, and I will leave it on private. For a private project, you need to specify the people you want to have access to in organization settings here, bottom left corner. We're not going to go into that yet. Maybe we'll go into it in a further video, but right now I'm just gonna leave it as is. I don't care about the advanced information because it's going to choose Git as a source control, version control technology, and that's what we want to use. So if you remember, we have a GitHub account where our source code is. GitHub is an implementation of Git. Git is the actual technology behind the scenes. And Azure DevOps also has a technology called Azure Repos Git, which is another implementation of Git. So even though they're two different products with two different names, the underlying technology is still Git, so they are compatible and we don't actually need to do anything. We just select Git, and in terms of work item process, let's leave it as agile. We don't give it a second thought, just create the project. Now that our new project called Path to DevOps got created, let's discuss this organization to project relationship. So the organization can be seen as the top level domain. It's basically where all the users are managed, and you manage a lot of high-level properties of Azure DevOps. And then you can see the projects as containers for departments inside that organization or for actual teams. When you have different project teams that are working for a specific product, you can create a project for them in Azure DevOps and give them all the necessary permissions inside of that project so that they can carry on their business. And other people who don't have the necessary permissions won't be able to see their work or interfere. And you can basically compartmentalize departments or teams in Azure DevOps using projects. The reason why we've created a new project in Azure DevOps is because we want to move the Path to DevOps microservices in here. And it's not like we couldn't integrate GitHub with Azure pipelines, because we could have, but I'm going to leave the initial setup applications in there, and we're going to migrate the microservices in here. And these microservices from Azure DevOps will evolve over time. We're going to make changes to them. We're going to add configuration files, and we're going to modify several things in order to improve the whole software development lifecycle. And I don't want all of that on GitHub, which is why I'm creating a new project, and we're starting together so we can all follow along through the process. Let's do just that and move the three microservices in Azure Repos Git. If we open our project, we're going to see all the technologies that are available to us for free on the left-hand side here in the menus. And I'm interested in repos. And as you can see here, I already have one repository created by default. with the name of the project, and I'm not actually interested in using this one. So what I'm going to do is create 3 different repositories, one for each application. So new repository, Git. I don't want to add a README because this will actually initialize my repo with an initial commit, and I don't want that. So I will just cart API, and I'll create it. New one, product API. Also, I don't want a README. And let's use the same naming convention, front end, let's say. All right, so now I have my 3 repositories, and I don't like this one. I don't like the path to DevOps one. So I'm going to go to project settings, and where is it? Repositories. And I'm just going to delete the path to DevOps one. I hope you like this trick. Let me show you again. If you double click on something and you just drag and drop it with your mouse, it's copy and paste. And now I'm left with my 3 repositories for my 3 applications. Let's move the applications inside. In order to put the code of the applications into the newly created repositories, I choose to clone the repositories as they are, which is empty, on my machine. And then I'm going to paste inside of them the code for the applications, and then I'm going to push that code using git commands. So first, let's clone the repositories, and I'm going to start with the first one, cart API, and I just need to copy the URL from here, where it says clone to your computer, and git clone, and paste the URL and hit enter. And as it says, warning, you appear to have cloned an empty repository, because that's exactly what happened. I have an empty folder with the same name, which is a repository, and we're going to paste the code for cart API inside of that repository. Now let's do the same with the other 2, and because the URL is respecting a naming convention, I can do this. And I don't need to copy paste because I know the name of my repositories. And the same, I've cloned an empty repository, and the same for front end. And now let me show you. If I do an ls, I now have 3 folders which are empty. It's now time to populate the empty repositories that we've just cloned. And I already have the commands for this. This is for front end. I'm basically copying from the path that's the GitHub repository into this folder here, which is the Azure DevOps repository. And I'll do the same for product API and the same for cart API. And if I list, you can see that, for example, inside of cart API, we now have the Docker file, the source code, and the POM XML, basically all we needed. Next logical step is to push all of this into the remote of the repository. So I'm just going to enter the repositories one by one, and I'm going to run git status. And as you can see here, it says there are a lot of untracked files, which basically means the files exist on my local machine, but they don't exist in remote. If you remember, and if I list everything, I have all of these files in here. But if I go to cart API, the remote, this is empty. So what I need to do here is to actually track these files, and I do that by running the git add dot command, and it will track everything. And then I will git commit, and I will say initial commit is basically creating a packet with all of these changes and pushing this packet to the remote later on. So I'm going to commit with initialization, and git push, and it should take a few more seconds. There we go. If we go here on cart API and we refresh, there we have it. Now the files appeared. So the remote, which is here on the website, is now synchronized with what's on my laptop. And that's the beauty of a source code management tool. If something would happen to my host, and let's say it got electrocuted, or destroyed, I could at any point in time download this code from here, or a colleague of mine could download this code as well, and we could work in a synchronized manner on the same project. And that's the beauty of it. Now let's do the same for the other two. So I'm going to move into the product API, and git status will show me a lot of untracked files as well. So git add to track them, git commit, and I'm lazy, so I'm just gonna say init for the initial commit, and git push. And now if we move to product API, it's still empty because this didn't push, but now it finished. So if we refresh, product API has the information as well, right? And one more step, let's do that for frontend. Alright, untracked, so git add to track them, git commit to bundle them inside of a commit, and then git push to push that commit to the remote. And sorry, misclick. There we have it. Source code is in here. Time for a serious talk. We've moved the code into Azure Repos Git, and I would like to give you some reasons why. The first one is because we want to have everything in the same place and emulate a software development team which is working on a software project. And that's exactly what we're going to do in this Azure DevOps organization. And Azure DevOps is a pretty cool tool to be inside of and learn the software development lifecycle. And the second reason would be the fact that Azure DevOps as a skill is pretty sought after on the market. So if you learn it, you'll have a higher chance of landing a job utilizing Azure DevOps if you have hands-on experience than just reading about it. Apart from the aforementioned reasons of why we should use Azure DevOps, also think that in the future we're going to need infrastructure to run our applications, and also we're going to need an automated process for build and deployment, and that's called a pipeline, and we're going to learn about Azure pipelines in the future videos. But we're going to need all this ecosystem for our application to work in, and Azure DevOps is actually a platform that tries to bring a lot of technologies together and make the software development lifecycle fairly easy for development teams. And it can support all of that in its repositories, through its pipelines, through its artifacts, and all the other technologies we're not going to talk about right now. But it's a great starting point for anyone wanting to learn DevOps because it brings everything into the same place. And it's also, as I said, a sought after skill on the market. So we're going to learn an actual technology you will be using on your future job when you land it, right? So thanks for putting up with me so far, guys, and I would like to wish you an amazing rest of the day wherever you are, and I'll see you next time when we talk about pipelines in detail. Cheers!